Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. Facebook's former top DEI manager pleads guilty to using her position to steal $4 million from the company. Barbara Furlow Smiles served in her position between January of 2017 and September of 2021. She linked Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal accounts to her company credit cards, which she used to pay hairstylists, babysitters, friends, family members, and others, billing Facebook for goods and services the social media giant never received. Many of those loved ones would give her kickbacks from the money they received to help fund her lavish lifestyle. Now, because of the 38-year-old's high-level position, she was able to approve many of these payments herself with falsified expense reports instead of having to go through higher-ups for immediate approval on getting the money. But I think the funniest aspect of this whole situation is how Facebook can even justify getting the feds involved with this case. Isn't Furlow Smiles a black woman after all? So wouldn't most of her friends and family members benefiting from the scam also be black? Isn't this what the DEI racket is all about? Redistributing money to an individual who didn't do anything to earn it just because they scream about racism or oppression or something? So even if Barbara Furlow Smiles broke the letter of the DEI law, didn't she uphold the spirit of it by taking money from a giant corporation and giving it back to underserved communities, per Facebook's left-wing theorists? Or I guess Facebook lefties only mean redistribution when it's white conservative middle-class Americans being robbed of their inheritance because they ain't opening up their own coffers, as you can see. They'd rather throw this lady in jail or whatever will happen to her at her sentencing next year in March. As this user jokes on X, quote, "Imagine being the investigators trying to figure out which DEI payments were illegal scams and which DEI payments were just legal scams," end quote. I like to hope that situations like this means that wokeism is starting to lose its grip on power. And I know many well-meaning conservatives believe that that will happen one day, but I'm not so optimistic. Wokeism, it's too perfect an ideology for the leftists in power, gives them everything they want. So even when DEI positions hit a rough patch, as many corporate boardrooms are now starting to back away from even hiring them, that doesn't mean that the underlying ideology is going away anytime soon. It's just taking on new forms and expressions. Our next guest tonight has a new piece that does a great job going through the minute details of how this ideology benefits so many people at the top, which is why it's so hard to get rid of. His piece, published to American Greatness, is titled, "What Motivates American Globalism?" Edward Ring is a senior fellow with the California Policy Center, and he joins us now. Edward, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So I want to go through bit by bit what our elites are getting out of this phenomenon of wokeism, which is an amalgamation of many radical left-wing ideologies going back even decades. So to that end, you first explained in your article how globalism isn't so much global as it's an updated American imperial project forced onto the rest of the world. Can you explain for us that distinction you make?
Well, first of all, globalism is a little bit of a contradictory term when you consider who's advancing globalism. A lot of the ideas behind the woke philosophy, and certainly as well with climate change, some of this stuff originated in Europe, but it's being pushed by American institutions. It's being pushed by government and media and entertainment and corporations, and they're all in alignment on this stuff. And if you look at what the consequences are of pushing these things on the rest of the world, you have to kind of examine what actually is happening in all of these other nations. For example, in Africa, you have countries that are just begging to be allowed to develop natural gas, and they can't because it's supposedly going to harm the climate. And so what happens instead? You have Western companies, and even if the Chinese are coming in to develop mines, for example, in these countries, the consumers for all of these resources are in America and Europe. And so you have all of this American money just pouring into African nations, Indonesia, South America, all over the world. And they're exploiting these countries for their resources to build renewables at the same time as they're denying these countries access to practical energy solutions like natural gas. At the same time, we have mass immigration into America from these same countries.